All right, so part of this process is starting with defining what our core values are as a team. So when we come together, we want to find out, and we have these meetings that we want to have more regularly. We start solving some of the problems we have as a practice. Well, we want to really define what are the things that we really value as a team, so that when we go back and we have a problem and people inevitably have little conflicts with one another, they can say, well, does this fit with this value? Because it doesn't seem like it does. And then that's a good way to cut to sort of the meat of some of the problems that we encounter. So the first part of that process was taking a look at ourselves and saying, well, what is it that we really like about our business? And not just our business, but our practice and our little family that's all gathered here eating breakfast this morning. And so we come together and we say, well, what is it that makes us so special? What do we love about it? And I, polling people, and just by looking at how frequently people leave and the turnover, I mean, it does appear as though you all like each other and like working in this practice a lot. And so with that being the case, we want to look at, well, what is it that we like about one another? What do we like about working here? So we looked at what makes us us. What's the core values that we have? And so to do that, I just started with some numbers. So some numbers for our company are like, well, we started in 2001, so we're about 18 years old, and that's a pretty good thing because about 50% of all businesses fail in the first couple years. So we've made it 18 years, and we'll be 2021. We'll be at 20 years, which would be great. So that's one number. We have obviously 3 locations, so that's another number. That's kind of cool. We've seen 14,505 new patients since we started keeping track. Those are the people whose lives you've impacted, and that's pretty cool, right? That's a lot of people. And then we've done 119,000 visits over the last 18 years. So we've impacted and touched the lives of the people in the community that many times, and that's a pretty impactful number. So looking at those metrics, because you guys know I'm pretty big into the metrics and numbers, I think that's pretty impactful and that's pretty impressive. But the biggest number that we kind of have, the most important number for our business, is 23. Because it's always the number, that's the number of people who work for us. I don't know that there's 23 people in this room, but every time I do a payroll, it's 23, the head count's 23. It's always that. So that's the most important number. That's more important than 14,000 or 119 or 3 locations or whatever. All right, it's the people that work here that are the most important. So when we started looking at core values, we didn't look at locations or visits or census or anything like that. We looked at the people, okay? That's how we wanted to determine our core values. What is it as a group that we value? So the methodology for coming up for the stuff that I have in today's talk is we looked at some of the survey work we do. We did the Strengths Finder. I sent some surveys out to people as a group. We met individually with a lot of people on the staff. Each of the site leaders came together. We have outside consultants, so we looked at different types of business sort of steering mechanisms, and like I said, we met as a group as the site leaders. So that would be Paul and Kate at Bethel. Paul representing Canonsburg, Bruce representing Brentwood. We came together as a group and we talked about these core values as well. So that was probably the most valuable thing for us, was each location representing their people and talking in addition to all the other ways that we looked at it. The method we chose to go with is called a traction method. So that's, and if you want to learn about how this is all going to go as we work our way through from today's meeting where we talk about core values to having a regular meeting pulse, both little groups and as a large group like this, you can read through that book, and we have those books available, and you can see how it's going to go. So that's just sort of one of that book pretty much distills down the way we want to kind of go forward in solving these problems we have. And so you know, businesses and practices have problems, and we know that. And we want to solve them as a group. We want to solve them respecting these values we talked about today. And that's kind of the basis of this whole thing. So when we talk about our values, we got together and we hammered them out. And we started with one that was kind of ran through the whole organization. It was really important. And so we led with professionalism. That's our first value. That's really important. We said we're a very professional group of people. More so, that differentiates us from other practices. When you look at the way that other practices, first of all, what makes us professional people? We'll look at the way we dress. This is other practices on Google. They come in, they dress a certain way. I think the way you present yourself to the person you're talking to, obviously, is very important. And everybody in this room does a really good job with that. We put it at the front, we lead with that, right? So well, there's someone right there who dresses. Oh yeah, right. Shirt and tie. You know, we're always committed to our appearance, and we think that that's a mark of professionalism, right? So what's another way that we're professional? Well, the clinical appearance, right? So it's not just appearance for yourself, but how is the clinical up, right? This is an example of one of our clinics. It's just where I was sitting when I happened to do the talk. And you can see that looks a lot different. And the people who work in other places, the new people, they can see how our clinics are a little different. So like this is going to be hard to see, and I'm going to actually blow this up, and it's going to turn sideways. But this is kind of, I don't know if I can do that. You can kind of see that workstation there, and then that's before, and then that's after. So this would be an example of somebody else's clinic there on the left, and then what we strive to do with it, even in the same physical plan. Physical appearance is very much different. I think if you go to Canonsburg, you can really appreciate that. So even when we don't build out the plant, it's definitely fits with our professional appearance. So that's another mark of professionalism. I think you guys are all very professional people, and that really sets us apart from the competition, other physical therapy places, and just with each other. Treat each other professionally. It's really important. How do we use our words? Like that's really important too, right? The way we talk to each other. Like it ain't a lot of Pittsburgh. I mean, I was gonna do a whole talk in Pittsburgh because I've been growing up with it my whole life. And I did a pretty good Pittsburgh accent. But yeah, it's the way we speak to each other respectfully. The way you speak to your patients, you respect their intellect, right? So, but I put that up and I thought that's not even really the real Pittsburgh dad. In my mind, the real Pittsburgh dad. So anyway, not from a verbiage standpoint. Yeah, it's always been dad to us, you know. And then when the one patient came in the one day, we'll never forget, and I'll never let you live it down, and pointed to Jim and said, "Is that your dad?" I said, "Yes." So anyway, Papa that. Another mark of professionalism is being involved in your professional association. We more recently have been a lot more of that. Obviously, I'm doing that, and there's me. And in that capacity, I'm putting a lot more effort and time into trying to shape our profession in this part of the state. And not just this part of the state. Our company has a lot of impact on right now because of the position that I accept and that you guys have supported me in shaping physical therapy across Pennsylvania. I mean, I have a lot of impact and say in the current position with the initiatives that the PPTA has done. And that's because you guys have all really supported that. And so we're impacting physical therapy across the state, which is kind of cool. And so that's kind of neat. And then another mark of professionalism is, do you further your education? We've been using MedBridge. I think the people here are committed to continuing education, to furthering their professional understanding. And we think that's important. That's a mark of professionalism. That's who we are. So that's number one, is professionalism, right? Another mark of professionalism sitting here with us, our students. We've taken students from different, taking students is a way to give back to the profession. And engaging in that learning, and that's part of it. That's professionalism, right? So when we look at professionalism, it's pretty obvious. That's what we lead with. And I think that we want to be professional people, and that's who we are. So that was the first one. So another one is positive, upbeat, and fun. All right? I don't think you have to work too long to find out. That's us at the MS Walk. I don't know if I can blow these things up or not. The Earth Your Enthusiasm. It's a great picture of the whole practice, and we have pictures through that's one way that we get together, and that's kind of fun and kind of neat. What other things have we done? We do the Brentwood Parade. That's another. That's pretty neat. Yeah, that's just a couple little pictures of the Brentwood Parade up there, which I think we're engaged in that, and that's a fun day as well. We did the Party Peddler. It's hard to see that photo, but this one right here, the photos sort of tell a little better story. That was fun. That was a few years ago, coming together outside of work, and that was a good time. Just the fantasy football contest. It does now say back-to-back champion, John, so there you go. It's officially announced John's won the last two. We've done, and then if you're familiar with the bell, if you ever hear that in the clinic, that's just sort of a fun thing that we do, and we've done different stuff like that over the years. So just being in the clinic, hopefully we're having a good time. If we're professional, then we can have a lot of fun and it doesn't seem like it devalues the experience. I've always said that. I think you guys do such a good job of making it a fun atmosphere without taking away from the patients feeling like they're getting a great intellectual delivery product. And so that's really important. Inclusive, fun, well this is like what, at Bethel they have the Great Bethel Bake Off, and that includes the patients and their fun. I think that's really important. And so, these are, actually John sent me a bunch of pictures of the baked goods.
Good job.
Yeah, and I would blow them up, but I mean everybody would be just getting back to the Danish, and so. But it was really impressive. It always seems to occur when I'm not there, but I think there's other reasons for that. It's great though, and it's fun, and they vote. The patients vote. And it was a cool idea. And we want to engender people inside of the company to come up with ideas like that. Hopefully, Bruce and I have created an environment where people feel like they can do stuff like this, that fits with the professional aspect, that fits with all 6 core values, but that's fun. And so, we've done the bees before, we've done a lot of different things to try to make it fun around work. But most of the fun we have is just with each other, right? Understanding one another's personality. And that's kind of important. Oh, this is a guy challenging an election. I put that in there just for some voting.
How much Liz is in that picture?
Let's not have baked that time.
Yeah.
No, you're right. That's what happened, so I got excluded from the inclusive.
So we don't want to be inclusive, right? So yeah, John, I felt the opportunity to give you a little ribbing after the back-to-back fantasy championship.
Right.
Good like that. So anyway, this is something that it was hard to put into words until I found this one phrase that's called "consider it done." So there's a lot of ways to say this, which is like, how do we treat each other when someone asks somebody to do something? And I thought these 3 words really encapsulated it. Consider it done. So it's like, LT always says, she here? Right, not a problem. That's her, like, LT, can you copy this? Not a problem, not a problem. And that's good. But I like when other people will say, well, consider it done. It's done. Because it's never a problem to ask for things. But when I say that, I know LT's going to do it. And when I say something to Mary, when I say something to Jim, I know it's going to be done. Hey, Jim, can you do a massage in room 4? It's like, done. You never, when you ask somebody else in our company to do something for you, Kenny, can I get mopes in 3? It's not like you're asking and they're like, oh, what a pain, When we ask each other to do things, it's like, consider it done, right? And that's really important as a team. I think this, when we're at the Panera, but I think one of the great stories was when Liz left the clinic to go to, was it Panera, to get that lady out of the car? So leaving the clinic, driving somewhere to get a patient out of a car who was stuck in their car because the patient didn't know who to call, the wife or the husband or whatever. That's a consider it done level of service. Just, that's really compassionate. That fits in a couple different boxes, that type of story right there. I mean, Jim repairs the asphalt. Okay, consider it done. Yeah, the asphalt. He goes out, and I think that's Jim, right? Paul took over a clinic, and there was a clinician there who, one of the patients was looking for him to get a wheelchair for 5 years for this patient, and never got this. It's a really complex, complicated wheelchair. There's payment issues, there's control issues, things like that. Paul was in the clinic for a couple months. The guy had his wheelchair. It's like, it took the other clinician 5 years to not do it. Paul did it in a couple months. Consider it done, right? That's part of what, and this kind of fits, it overlaps with another value, which is this compassionate care that we deliver. You can't separate these values out. That's what we're going to kind of get to eventually. I mean, just even something like Candace and Kate and Megan and the front office staff. Somebody needs a Healthways authorization. It's like, consider it done. Or one of the techs, anybody, Kelly, Bruce needs his Healthways stuff, help with that so that he can do something else. Consider it done. They're doing these things. We do it for each other. It's a core value that we have with one another, right? So that's that value, and I think that's really important. And then we get into inclusive, compassionate care, the way we care for our patients, right? It's like we let you into our lives too. All of Jennifer's patients know how she is with animals, right? And that's a value. She lets them into their life, right? Everybody, we all know about how each person does everything, right? John, he had a patient who stopped into the clinic to ask, who was discharged, about his baby, because John had let them into their life, right? And that's just part of who we are. So we let the patients into our lives. We, even the group from Bethel took this patient out to dinner, and it was a big thing, and I know it was inconvenient for you guys, this was on a weekend, but they did this for this lady who had been coming to us for a long time, and just to sort of celebrate that, and I thought that was really cool. Chuck Chalovich had his basement flooded. I didn't even know about this till the other day, and people started telling me about it, and the group in Brentwood, and Molly and Bruce and Mary and June, and we're writing letters for him and getting some funding, and really took this guy and helped him through a very difficult time. And that's just that compassionate, just being a part of the lives of your patients and caring for them. I mean, I personally, as you guys know, and I think a lot of people in the practice do pray for and with their patients all the time. So that's a part of just who we are. So hopefully I lead a little bit by example there. So that's one of those core values. Back to inclusive fun. This is one of my favorite stories from when Kate and I were working in Bethel. I used to play the Friday song, and she hated it every Friday. And the rule was, if a patient came in and they said, "It's Friday," I would put the song on, and we would all laugh about it because she hated it. And the best, I thought it really encapsulated the inclusivity of it was, I was on vacation once, and one of the patients knew we were doing this, so she came in. She had taken the time to download this song on her phone. She said it's Friday and played the song just to give Kate a little ribbing, a little fun. And I thought to myself, that's really cool. Because that means that you don't want to go to a business where the employees are all yucking it up and you're not a part of it. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to be that kind of business. We're not. I think you guys do such an incredible job of including the patients in your fun. So that's really part of who we are, and that's in here, right? So, and this was another piece of being inclusive. This has to do with the bake sale. I was talking to a lady, she's walking out of the clinic, we got always in and out bustling. And this lady, her name was Mary. She's like 85 years old. She can't be anything less than 85 years old. Mary Land. Yeah. The cutest lady in the world.
What she's talking to her, yeah, she's getting that either.
She said, "Are those hot cross buns?" My mom used to make those every Easter. It reminds me of her. She used to love those. And she just connected with that. She's like 85 years old talking about her mother. I mean, that had to be like 1920s. I don't know. Not that long ago. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about a business that transcends physical therapy if they're connecting with their patients on a level like that. And that's just something like you don't know when something you do is going to connect with somebody. But that I thought was pretty cool. I wanted to share that with you guys. So the next core value that we kind of talk about is appreciative flexibility. We've always been very flexible with our patients and with each other, and we're always very appreciative. It's not enough to be flexible. You have to sort of do it in a way that makes you a gracious, generous person, because you don't want people to feel indebted, right? So that's where the appreciative flexibility comes from. Getting new patients in. We've always been good about getting new patients in 24 hours, 12 hours, as soon as we can. Really important, right? Cancellation policy. People cancel, they no-show. Other places charge them for that. We've just decided to issue that over the years because Well, that doesn't really fit with our core value. We're gonna have to find other creative ways to make it so people show up and value what we do, but we're not charging them for it. We think that's kind of important. How about this? When somebody comes in for their 3 o'clock appointment and they're really on the schedule for tomorrow. And this is always during the busiest time of the day, or maybe it's at 9 in the morning, right? How many people in this room just send them home? Nobody. We almost always, not almost, but we always bring that pay. We find a way to get them in. And usually they'll blame it on the scheduling and everything. And in my experience, an hour later, they'll call back and say, that was really my fault. I found out that I was scheduled. That's fine. You know, we don't want to make them feel indebted about it. We want to be appreciatively flexible. That's who you guys are. It's part of our core values, right? When one of us is sick, when one of us is walking around, we're flexible with each other, right? Trying to make that work. And that's going to be, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So the next one is called resilient team players. So again, combining a lot of different values to describe people, to describe ourselves. So we're all team players. Everyone in this room has been a great team player. One of the ways we do that is when we're busy. You know, people don't just check out and take off and leave the other people in the lurch. Sometimes they'll work overtime when we're really busy. And that's being flexible, and that's being a team player. And the other side of that is when we're not very busy. You know, people say, well, we're not busy, I'm gonna go home early, because I know on the other side, I'm gonna have to. And that's, again, being a team player for the team, for the practice, so that it can be successful. You know, people are not just sticking around and doing nothing because that's their shift. So that's kind of part of that. And then how about when we go on vacation? It doesn't always work out that you can get the right kind of coverage. Everybody in this room has been very flexible. They're a real team player for covering for that other person, knowing that when they go on vacation, people are covering for them. That's being a team player right there. That really describes you guys. And that's all part of a strategy that in the military they call cover and move. It's really important, right? These military guys, they're in a city, they're in some kind of warfare. I cover for you so that you can move. And we do that with each other all the time. There's a lot of cover and move in our organization. You guys are really good at it. And when we're busy, it goes back to some of those things. So it's like, you know, cover and move is all part of that, covering for a busy census. It's also part of, hey, can you do a massage over here so I can do mobs over here? You know, hey, I'm running behind. Like, that's really important because this eval's taking forever. Can you cover for me by just go keep that lady company? You know, you don't have to do anything more than distract her a little bit. That's important. Everybody in the organization can do that, right? And so that's kind of cover and move, and that's what a lot of what we do. And that also, so that's in the consider it done. So see, I'm kind of bumping back and forth between, because as you get to the end of this thing, a lot of these core values, they fit in a lot of different places, these stories do that we have about how we came up with what we are, right? So that's the cover and move. We're open on Saturdays. Like, that's important, that's big. And the people in this room have been flexible team players and able to do that for the patients. Over the course of time, we've had a lot of things happen with each other, right? Jim and Kelly have lost parents while they've been working with us. Lauren and Liz have had some family members that had some very serious illnesses. And Bruce, he suffered a heart problem, heart attack. He was out for a few months. I mean, I look at those and I say, when that occurred, hopefully you guys felt like the team rallied around and could take shifts and cover for you and make it so that when you're grieving or when you're helping a loved one or when you're helping yourself, you didn't feel like your job was suffering in jeopardy. I mean, I think the people were appreciative, they were flexible, they're team players. I mean, again, this is the type of thing that fits in a bunch of different boxes. I was naming people, and Mary, I thought you kind of needed your own little circle because 2018 and 19 were just crazy. I mean, Mary lost her mom. Her dog is sick and losing very loved ones. She had like a broken arm, the foot, and oh yeah, she's got MS on top of all that. And part of so like this was just a kind of an example that's very recent of one of our team that's going through something, and hopefully everybody rallied around you and felt like, you know, we were coming together to support one of our team members. But I think the other side of that is really important when we look at that list of all those people, and Mary is a great example of this as well, was when these guys come to work, they're resilient, and it's like when they're with the patients, no one knows that a loved one is sick or that they're sick or something, because they are giving everything to that patient. So that's kind of the resilient part of being a team player. And it's also a professionalism thing, is that when you're going through a very difficult time, people in the company, you know, when they're working with patients, they're still compassionate and caring about those patients, and the patients aren't really even knowing that they're going through such a hard time. That's resiliency, and that's really something that flows through the fabric of everybody that's here. And I really appreciate that. So that's pretty much it. Those are the stories, because these narratives tell a lot better about us than me just talking about them. And I think hopefully the teams that came up with this came up. I think there's 1,000 more stories about all these values that we can talk about. But just to sort of sum things up: professionalism, positive, upbeat, and fun. Consider it done. Hopefully everybody now knows what that means. Inclusive, compassionate care, appreciative flexibility, and resilient team players. And those are the 6 things that we came up with. So those are our core values. We established those today. We're excited about that. Hopefully those resonate with you guys. Hopefully you look at it, you look at that list, you think about those stories, and you think, you know, what kind of place do I want to work at? And hopefully that's inside of everybody here. From here, we're going to start to take that and build on it. We're going to meet more frequently. We're going to talk about the issues that we have. We're going to leverage this stuff. This is what we want to lean into. Sort of like the Strengths Finder, where we find out what we're strong at. We're going to lean into that. And so that's what we're going to use to try to kind of move things forward. So that's it. What time is it? 8 o'clock? 8:08? So yeah, from here we can have breakfast. We can go from there. We'll have more meetings set up. It's going to be more regular in the future, where we come together, we talk, hopefully not as much about this stuff and more about applying this to our everyday work and the work that we do, the way we are with each other. And a lot of that was inside of here is you guys, a lot of what you do is how you are with the patients. A lot of what I see is how you are with each other. And that's, for me, more important, because when you come to work, you want to enjoy that. And to some degree, it's about the patients, but really mostly it's about the way we treat each other. And I'm really proud of this group, the way we treat one another. And I think it makes it a great experience and place to work. So, that's it. Turn the lights on, you can stop the recording.